Anti-Afro Svengalis. Yes, the title of the video. I just want to make sure your eyes are seeing what they actually see. Yes, Islam. Right before the election, there's something that happened on Remix's channel, on his platform panel, and I kept meaning to address it, but all the things kept coming up. But I'm definitely coming back to this. There was a discussion about Islam in some aspect, and the topic was consumption of alcohol. So there was confirmation of what I've always known for as long as I've ever known. Consuming alcohol is against Islamic faith. I know that based on numerous people who were born and raised in countries that practice Islam, what's the predominant religion, I'll say. It's considered Islamic country. They've come to the United States and they live in the United States and they continue to be devout. Consistently have stated it is absolutely 100% prohibited to consume alcohol. There's no question about that. Now, also, there are people here in the United States who were born and raised in Islamic countries and they own liquor stores. I've had discussions with them and they're very clear. We're business people. We can't do this in our country. I don't drink it, but you damn well better believe I'm selling it. That is up to them. That's them. I'm not going to judge them. They're running a business, they're making money. I'm just making it very clear it's a fact. So you have two segments. People look at it different ways. I wanted to make sure that was clear, but then it dovetailed into another topic. I'm not quite sure how it got into the other topic, but I typed something in the chat. It was about women, and I stated it is not legal in an Islamic country to publicly despair women. What I meant by that, and I said it in the chat, you cannot go in public, like a man can't go in public and start publicly disparaging a woman, calling her all kinds of hoes and bees and sluts and all of this, just trashing her name all out in the public. So if you have witnesses to that, the man can be prosecuted, or anybody can be prosecuted, but primarily we're talking about a man publicly disparaging a woman. And then someone else from that Umar Johnson sector started mentioning adultery. I didn't say anything about adultery. Let me be clear. I'm not referring to adultery. The comment was not made to any specific person. I was making a very specific point. And where is my resource coming from? It's coming from people who were born and raised in Islamic countries. They all have been consistent with confirming this is fact. The information originally came from people who were born and raised in an Islamic country. How am I going to know this? It's not something I'm going to make up on my own. And I have asked many people from many different Islamic countries, is this true? Absolutely is true. And then the person brought up, not the person from the other sector, someone from the Umar Johnson sector, who actually, let me just go back, started saying, it depends on what kind of alcohol you drink. No, no alcohol is no alcohol. But this particular subject, who likes to try and argue, I don't know why, debate Christianity. There's no debate. I'm not debating a religion. That's not the issue. I'm just making it clear this is what people who practice the faith stated. So he starts to bring up something about Afghanistan. How bad they're doing this to the people in Afghanistan and the women. This, don't talk to me about how bad another country is. We're blowing up people with robots and dropping bombs on houses with kids in it and making the most, or manufacturing, I should say, the most guns, arms in the world. I don't want to talk about how bad another country is. If I'm going to talk about how bad another country is, I'm going to start right here in this country where I live. Now, I want to hear shit about how bad another country is. We got shit to deal with here. I don't want to hear about Afghanistan, but I tell you what you can do. Get your ass on a plane to Afghanistan and put what I'm saying to a test. Hop on a plane to Afghanistan, go walk around in Kabul, and start trashing women publicly. Start disparaging women in public and see if you ever get back here, and except for in pieces, or if they ever find you. I guarantee you won't make it back. It's a fact. You can't do it in another country. You're not going to see, you're not going to hear scantily clad women gyrating, and you're not going to see anybody up there going off about hoes and bees and sluts and all this when it comes to women. You're not going to see it in an Islamic country. That's the point I'm making. And you're not going to be allowed to disparage women. Every country has everything. I know that. There is no place on earth that is pristine, pure, with no concerns. I'm talking about what's socially acceptable. What is the norm? What is commercialized? What is bought and sold? And it most certainly is not the exploitation of women that's up in public and accepted and applauded. That's the point I was trying to drive home. It didn't have anything to do with adultery. I'm not talking about adultery. I'm talking about what is openly socially acceptable. It is not socially acceptable. You will be prosecuted if you go and try. If you're a foreigner, you come from another country, you'll never make it back. You'll never be heard from again. Or they might make an example of you. They may videotape what they do to you. And you can imagine what that will be. The same thing they're doing here in the United States, blowing people up with robots and dropping bombs on houses. You will end up in the news, but it will not be as a hero. So I wanted to drive that point home about the difference. And this comes from people who are from Islamic countries. It's not made up. It's not some fantasy. It's fact. And I believe it. I believe what the people say who were born and raised in those countries. And oh, let me give you another reference point. I have cousins that lived in Iran for, it's a total, I guess, of almost 8 years. First, when their father was working for, was Hughes Corporation, contractor. Then he was in the Air Force for 4 years. Same thing. You want to talk about how bad other countries are? I don't want to hear that mess. I'm talking about what's happening here. If you want to talk about atrocities, I can't do a damn thing about atrocities in another country. Start here in your own country. Hey, why don't you start in the Umar Johnson sector where they allow other races to attack their own race, to treat them like they're on a slave plantation and expect other black folks to go along with it. I'm not going along with that shit. I'm not on a slave plantation. I don't give a damn about somebody doing some legal research. Bring it on, and we'll get the Texas Bar Association involved. I don't give a shit. I will say what I'm going to say. If you got a problem with Ku Klux Klan or KKK being inserted into the mix, well, change up your behavior. But in the meantime, you display KKK behavior. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm calling it for what it is. And there's a whole stream. There's like 3.5 years worth of this race attacking bullshit by a white attorney coming into a black space, expecting deference, that we are supposed to defer and answer questions while these disparaging comments are made, not just about black folks. I mean, pull out the EEOC protected class list, protected group list, and see how many of these groups have been disparaged by this white attorney coming into a black space thinking that black folks have to act in deference. I'm not acting in deference to anyone. I don't have to have a conversation. I don't have to answer any questions. Again, there are black folks who don't mind acting like they're living on a slave plantation and must be in deference to someone just because they're white. I am not one of those people, and nobody can force me to acquiesce to that bullshit. Like I stated, go for it. There are things that are said that would never, ever pass muster for a background investigation coming out of this mouth. Never would have got a law license for saying that shit. And for some reason thinks it's okay to say it now. It's not okay to say it now, and try to force black folks to hold conversations, and they're going to tell us about ourselves. You're not telling me about anything. You better tell it to the Texas Bar Association. And also trying to force us to give some sort of information about a timeline. We don't have to give this idiot anything. We are not under any orders. We have no orders to be followed. We are the ones being targeted and harassed and stalked and followed all over YouTube. Key point coming into our space. Where are we going following this fool around? It is the other way around. See, that's the benefit of sitting back, listening, and waiting. And I'm going to sit here and try to curb our free speech. You're not going to curb our free speech. We're going to open our mouths and speak whenever we want to speak about the bullshit that's going on. If we don't want to speak, we're not going to speak. No one's going to force us to do anything. Listen, folks, you know I got more coming your way. In the meantime, buyer beware.